Actually, I stepped out of the room to go down and get some water to have back here before the session started, and I really felt like a fish trying to get back up through the stream of people, swimming the wrong way going down the hall. All right. Good morning. Glad to see you all up after PartyPlex last night. That was really a lot of great fun. Hopefully, the voice will stick with me this morning. I know everybody probably did a lot of yelling last night to get over the sound of all the music and all of the cars if you were standing outside, but I hope that you enjoyed that. My name is Karen Patterson. I'm with one of the original Plex partners, Revolution Group, and we have been working with Plex for 10 years now. My little 10-year badge on here. And our topic today is learning to fish, the tips and tricks for learning or for finding out how something works before you call. Let's see here. Just 1 minute. Who is Revolution Group? So you know who we are and why I'm here. We were founded in 1995. We are located, our offices are located in Columbus, Ohio, so central Midwest region. And we are an information technology solutions provider. We do have a group that specializes in ERP implementation and particularly in Plex ERP implementation. We have worked with a number of folks that have implemented here. We have 17 years of supply chain experience working in your industries, but we also do custom application development and integration. You have heard a lot about the new community-enabled development tool set that Plex is rolling out. We are spearheading a lot of those projects, and so we now have 2 arms to our Plex skill in community-enabled development and custom application development and integration, and then our implementation group, which has been kind of the grandfather of it all. We are partners with Plex Online. We also are a Salesforce.com partner, as well as Adaptive Planning and Microsoft. So as I mentioned, our topic today is learning to fish. And really what I want to accomplish today, one of my goals to accomplish today, is to welcome you all into the group of Plex implementers. I don't know if you're prospective customers, new customers, somewhere new in your implementation, or just kind of feel like you're the only one out there that doesn't know if they have all of the tools in their toolkit or not. But my goal today is to introduce you to a lot of the tools that we use as Plex implementers, how we find the answers that we find, and to help you be able to fish yourself. I thought that this cartoon was pretty funny because you feel like that a lot of days when you're implementing Plex, as in, also doing other projects, but that's probably you up in the boat trying to fight the answer out, and then the system on the bottom trying to pull the answer back in. So we're going to keep working at it, and we're going to get the answers that you need. Now, I came from a world of supporting legacy applications, nice green screen applications. Under my desk, I had the row of manuals, bound up, 3-ring punch, could flip to any section that I wanted to know, and could find out exactly how something worked. Whether I liked it or not was a different question, but at least I knew the answer every single day until that next release came out. When the next release came out, I got my packet in the mail. I pulled the pages out. I stuck them back into my 3-ring binder. So again, I had this nice, smug feeling. I know exactly how this thing works. And I can feel that way and confident about what I'm seeing. Again, I had this great set of manuals, right, and kept them under my desk and always had them to reference back to. But this is actually a quote. In today's day and age, manuals are just another man's opinion, right? Just another man's opinion about how the system might work. That quote's from my husband as he gets out the manual to the tractor or to how to build the new furniture or whatever. That's just one man's opinion, honey, and he tucks it away. So you know well that we don't have printed manuals in Plex. We don't have the CD that comes with the system. We have a lot of breadcrumbs and nuggets of information. We have a lot of sources, but we don't have that nice, tidy set of manuals that we're used to. So, just to put a little bit of perspective on this, you guys, I'm sure most of you have probably read The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, where he speaks about the idea that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything. So that's about 5 years of working full-time at something. Myself personally, along with a lot of the implementers on our team, I've probably put 24,000 hours of my life into learning Plex. And the truth is that with the way that it changes, with 350 modules, with 35,000 settings behind the scenes, driving functionality into the system, 3,400 tables. Now, actually, I just learned today there's 5,400 tables. Changed since the last time I knew that. You know, when you're working with just a bunch of users every day, you have a compressed timeline. You really have an unwieldy number of business processes that you have to deal with. And you have one completely integrated system from beginning to end that changes every day. It often ends up like this, right? This is the way we feel. And you think to yourself, and I have to be honest, I think this to myself as well, right? I've been doing this for a long time. But I wonder how everybody else gets this done. How does everybody figure this out? And how do we get a system that is functional from beginning to end and complete when we have this kind of changing situation? But I do want you to take heart. You know, there are a group of professionals that, you know, that we're all pulling into that do implement Plex. We are able to find the answers that we need, and I'm going to show you some of those tool sets today. The first thing to know about Plex Online and being a part of this community and a part of this system is that you will learn at least one new thing every day. You will think that you knew something, you will think that you knew everything about it, and then you'll come to a meeting like this, you'll go to one of these training sessions, and you'll find out something new. I have modules that I've specialized in for years. I have notes in here about things that I learned new about them because the system always grows and evolves and people use it differently. So you can always think differently about the processes and the tools that you have. So don't feel bad about that. It's the reality of living in the Plex implementation role. Next thing to know is that for the large part, we all deal with the same toolkit. There are a few tools that the Plex implementers have that you don't have. They maybe have some toolkits where they are able to cross between PCNs that you don't have access to, so they're able to see maybe why something was developed and provide that kind of answer. But largely, they're working in the same toolkit that we are. So you should know that given some of the basics that we're going to look at today, that you have a lot of tools in your hand, and there's nothing that intentionally somebody's not telling you unless it's proprietary to another business. So let's just talk about the basics. The test environment. And I don't know, you know, maybe we have people that are brand new to Plex. Some of this stuff is going to be really straightforward and basic. Some of it, again, you're going to learn something new coming out of here. I'm pretty sure about that. So the test environment is a complete copy of your program's settings and permissions as they were as of midnight the night before. There are a couple of exceptions to that. Some of the PCNs that are in Japan, they have a different timeline for refreshing the test database. But for the large part, it refreshes at midnight the night before. Ways that people leverage the test environment in their implementation process and still keep their production environment nice and clean is that you can set up master data, a part, a supplier, a customer, a purchase order in your production environment, and then let it copy to test the next day and do your production or your testing transactions in the test environment so that you don't muddy the waters in your production environment with data that you're going to have to cleanse out. So that's just one simple way to think about using the test environment. Once something is put into the test environment, while it copies from production to test, you can't copy it back. So you don't want to go into test and think that you're going to build some great schema out there and then be able to copy it back, because you cannot copy back from test to production. This is a piece of information that just kind of hovers out there that it takes a little bit to get a grasp on, but there are two ways to get to test. They are not the same exactly, right? So probably what you're most familiar with is your ability to go to the hover menu, go to the test database, and change to the test database. That is going to give you a copy of your, as I said, your programs, your data, and your permissions as it was the night before. If Plex is rolling out a modification and they want you to use the modified code, you need to, instead of going to hover database server test, you need to actually change your URL to test.plexus-online.com. That's going to give you the most current version of the software that maybe has not been released to production yet, along with your data from the night before. So when Plex says in an SR back to you, go to test, and you say, I did go to test. No, go to test. This is what they mean, go to test.plexus-online.com. It doesn't hurt just to do that as a different way to get there. And sometimes, and this has been happening probably in the past 2 years that I've noticed it more than other times, when you're working in the test environment, and a lot of times you get a nasty test error. It just comes back and it's just a real vague error about your inability to use test. Sometimes that can be resolved by going to test.plexus-online instead, because there's a disconnect between the code and the database structure. So just something to be aware of there. All right. So as the Plex implementer, also, one of the most important things that you can do as a Plex implementer is to verify what your users are telling you. And go and see where the activity is. Don't just listen, to what they're saying they're seeing on the screen or what they say they are doing, but actually go out and see what they have going on. I have a really kind of a funny example of this. I was working with a customer that had a sequenced shipping process that they were doing, and they were really having trouble meeting the customer requirements of sequencing these loads properly and getting Plex to understand the sequence of the loads. And we went back and forth in user supports. It actually escalated up to Plex for a while. They went back and forth in user supports, looking at code, trying to figure out what could be going wrong with this complicated process. Finally said, you know what, I'm going to have to drive out there and see what you guys are doing. So I did. Went out on the plant floor where they were loading these trucks, and we had racks all the way down this wall of parts that they were scanning. These are big racks of parts. They had a computer at the front end of the process with a scanner, a handheld mobile scanner, and somebody standing at that computer, and the other person was walking along and scanning the containers as they went to load them to the truck. And they'd yell up, okay, I'm done, advance the field. This person would be up here, okay, I advanced the field. They were never pressing enter. Right? So go to the point and see what's going on is not always a system problem. So that's just, basic common sense in business, but it happens all the time. Is your computer plugged in? Ask the simple questions first. The other thing that we do as a matter of practice is to go ahead and set up a test user ID in your PCN. We have a user ID in our Revolution group PCN. We call him Test Guy, and we all have access to Test Guy. Pretty much to change his permissions, to change his profile, maybe to set him up as a supplier sometimes, just so that we can test with a set of conditions that are similar to the user that we know we're trying to roll out the functionality to without needing to get that user to sign on or needing to change their password. So it's good just to have a test user profile. Of course, what you want to do when you're not using it is to set it to inactive so that if somebody finds out about it, they're not able to get in and do anything you wouldn't want them to be able to do. But it's helpful in the implementation process. Okay, even though we don't have a great set of manuals under our desk, we do have a lot of documentation in Plex. And there actually is a lot of this documentation that I forget about myself. The first place to look is in the training documents. And actually, if you have been with Plex for maybe a couple years, you might not even realize that you have this, because they rolled this out maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Didn't used to be there, these more formal training documents that are available to you. If you menu search customer training material, you should be able to find a menu node that looks like this. It's organized by business track. So this track will kind of give you an overview as to how you might implement different phases if you're doing a phased approach. And then procure to pay, right? This gives you different training documents related to everything from purchasing to accounts payable. There is usually a training document that for every major module in the system. They certainly in no way cover every option that might exist in the system, but they're going to give you a good basis and a good starting point for a pure implementation of that module. There are a lot of hints and tricks, and these are written by the Plex PMs themselves, the subject matter experts in each area. So they're written and maintained, and you'll see on there that there are notes about how recently they have been reviewed and maintained. So this is a really good place to start. This supplemental documentation, this is also a good place to come and look. Plex has been writing training documents and creating different internal training documents, customer training documents for a lot of years. And this is a place where maybe some really random pieces of documentation have been collected together. So you're going to find basic stuff in these buttons here. This supplemental documentation is going to take you into more obscure maybe options or different, even kind of ways of implementing different business processes. The Wiki. If you implemented recently, you were implemented with the Wiki itself. There are 2 ways to get to the Wiki, and it is in the upper left-hand corner of every screen that you're on. Your button may say Help on it. If it does say Help on it, then you probably were implemented before the Wiki rolled out, or your organization has chosen not to use the Wiki as its primary means of providing help information to the user. There's a setting, and I hope it's big on the screen, but there is a setting called Wiki Use, and that's what turns your help button from launching you into the old Plex help system and launching you into the new Plex Wiki. The other way to get to the Wiki is actually just by menu searching for the wiki, you may not have all of these options, but you should at least have a menu button that will get you to the wiki, which is the same place you would get if you launched to it through the help button. Now, using the wiki, it can be pretty intimidating when you first open this screen. There is a lot to the wiki screen. I think that some of the functionality is evolving, particularly when we talk about the functionality that's on the right-hand side in guiding these modules together and drawing them together. I'm just giving you practical experience. I haven't really found a lot of value in getting involved on this side of the page, but certainly up in the wiki search section, to use this, you're going to either want to search by the title or by a keyword for something that you're looking for. If you're searching for the title, you pretty much have to have it exact. So if maybe a Plex PM or you find in some help documentation someplace else, go to this wiki, you need to put the title name in there pretty exact to what they gave you. I am much more inclined to use the keyword search more often and just put a simple word in there to search for it. So I searched for invoice and I pulled back the screen for, after selecting it out of my list, I pulled back the screen for the accounts receivable customer invoice. And this would be the primary page for understanding everything that there is to know about accounts receivable customer invoices. You don't use wildcards in the wiki, you just put a word in the keyword, so we're not using that %sign wildcard in there anywhere. There are some options in whether you have to match exactly or not. I'm sorry, I keep losing my mouse. Whether you have to match exactly or not, or you can have a more fuzzy match. And there are some advanced search capabilities. You notice on here, and this is not a training session on the wiki, I just want to point out functionality so that you know where to use it. The wiki is intended to be a collective knowledge base. It is built a lot of times by the Plex implementers and the SMEs to simulate a lot of the information that you see in the training documents or to add information when they have it. So you see that the SMEs contribute to it a lot, but it is very much intended for the customer base to contribute to it as well. So to edit a wiki, there are a couple ways to do it. You see an edit link right here, and you also see an edit wiki right here. The good news about editing the wiki is right beside it, you see a wiki history page. And on that wiki history page is a revert or restore, something like that button. You see every change that was ever made to the wiki. If you make a change to it and you go, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I don't want the whole world to see that, because the whole world will see that. I don't want to do that. You can go to wiki history and just restore it back to the previous version without anybody ever seeing that crazy comment that you put in there or maybe the information that you put in. So you are encouraged and asked to contribute to the wiki as you have information about the ways that you have experienced a particular module or experienced the way that a particular setting has worked for you, because it greatly enhances everybody else's ability to use the system. The other place that you see the wiki is throughout the whole system. You're starting to see these question marks. These are little help boxes, and I have brought it up here on the customer settings page. So on the customer settings page is just one of the places that you see this link out to the wiki with these question marks. And if you click on it, it's going to take you to the Plex description for this particular customer setting in the form of a wiki. Just a little small page. Now I could link out to the detail if I wanted to go find more detail or the detail that exists in the wiki about this setting. One of the ways that well, I guess I should back up here. In editing a wiki section, you can edit the wiki and add content that is available to all of Plex, the whole Plex community to see, which is highly encouraged. There also is a flag when you enter the wiki information to say this is just for internal use. So you can modify the wiki and put in information that's specific to your customer or your customer group, if you belong to a customer group, that will only be seen internally. So an idea about where that might be powerful during an implementation is to use the internal wiki functionality to just make notes about why you turned a setting on or off. Or, because you just can't imagine how many of those things I have in my brain. Okay, I have to remember that I turned this setting on because when I did this, it did that, and my gosh, I have to remember 3 years from now, don't ever turn that off again because it's going to wreak havoc in shipping if I do that. I don't remember those things. So use the functionality of the internal wiki to leave notes for yourself about why we turned a setting on or off and the impact that we saw when we turned it on or off. I think that the wiki itself describes pretty well how to edit the wiki, so I'm not going to actually train on that. Okay, so that is the wiki. The forum. The forum, as you know, is a community-driven conversation board, a community conversation board. And to find the forum, you're just going to menu search forum. It should be in every PCN. And it actually is getting to be very, very active in the community. There is a lot of conversation that goes on through the forum. And it is also the mechanism that Plex uses to announce new enhancements to Plex. So a couple things about the forum. Once you're inside it, I've always had a little bit of a difficult time finding this button. To search the forum, the search button is right at the top in blue. And when you click on this search button, it's going to ask you whether you want to search the whole forum or just within a certain thread, and you can add keywords. So let's say that I want to know something about standard costing. I can go to search, I can search the whole forum, I can put in standard costing, and I'm going to get a lot of results returned where people are talking about, hey, we're having this problem with standard costing. Does anybody know how to resolve it? Or, you know, you also can certainly go and post to these forums. You see that it's organized. I couldn't put the whole thing on here, but there are sections in the forum, random chit-chat, cross-browser conversations, general IT, some more Plex customer grouping type forums, maybe people that want to talk about using POL in Mexico. And then actually, if you scroll down from here, you're going to see a thread for every module in Plex. So it can be really valuable to come to this forum and just scroll through maybe the standard costing module or the accounts payable module or the inventory module just to see what people are talking about and where they're running into problems. Certainly, again, this is a community tool. So if you can answer anybody's questions, please jump on and contribute. If you, the other thing that you can do here is to subscribe to the forum. So you can, using this button right here, you can subscribe to get email posts or email updates whenever somebody posts to a forum. That can also be set up so that you get a summary at the end of the day. Otherwise, you will get a lot of emails. You can certainly pick which threads you want to subscribe to and participate in, but I would highly recommend that you do subscribe to the new enhancements thread. This is where Plex announces all of the enhancements that are rolling out. And it's actually a pretty neat mechanism that they use to do this. I don't know if you've noticed, but on your support requests, there is a section on a support request, and this probably came out, I don't know, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that says forum on it. When a support request is marked to complete, you are asked whether you want to post this information to the forum. So in your ability to post from your own PCN information to the forum, you can provide to the community maybe why you did this enhancement, what it is, how it works, and in turn, people are providing that kind of information to you through the forum. So a lot of the developers do this as well, but customers can do it also to get new enhancements from the support request system posted over to the forum so that you can see it. So lots and lots of good information in the new enhancements forum. All right. Additionally, in the forum, there is a thread. It's called Training. Plex Forum Training is the thread. And every month, Plex does brown bag sessions. So these are recorded webinars. You can either sign up to take them when you get the email that, hey, I don't know what day they're usually on, but hey, there's going to be a brown bag seminar this month on this particular topic. You can see them listed here, what they have been recently. This has been going on for probably 2 years. So there are 1 hour long webinars that are presented on topics of interest to the Plex community, and also new products that are maybe being rolled out by partners and these sorts of things. So these are all out there. I know that one that's referenced often is the fixed asset. There's a brown bag on fixed assets. There's the new fixed asset module. There's brown bag on quote tracking, brown bag on supplier master pricing. So this is a really good way to get caught up in your training. And I think this is a nugget that just kind of gets lost out there, but also on the forum is a thread, Plex Forum, and the thread is called PowerFlex. Within this forum entry is a PowerFlex entry for every year, and underneath this are all of the PowerFlex seminars, or at least as many as were collected each year, right? As you go back a few years, maybe we weren't collecting as many of them. But all of these sessions, when this seminar is completed, are going to be out on the forum for you and recorded for you to be able to go back and reference too. So you've got years and years of PowerFlex information built up in there for you to use for your training purposes. And yet it goes on, more information. Another resource that I have seen people use, and it's easy to forget about, this is purely on the Plex sales website, plex.com. There are a number of webinars out there at this URL, and you can click to it right on the web page as well. They're not necessarily detailed training sessions because this is sales material, but sometimes it's good just to see, even from a sales standpoint, how different people are using Plex in their own environments. So that can be useful. The communities. Don't miss out on the opportunity for communities. PowerFlex, certainly, they're not just a party, right? We do lots of learning here. The user groups that were mentioned yesterday, and I think that there are more of these forming. We also host a Plex Supply Chain Community, which is a group for Honda suppliers that use Plex and participate and use the forum as a community to bounce questions off of other people that are in the trenches using it the same as you. Now what you're seeing here is internal documentation. So we certainly encourage you to use the wiki to record what you know about settings and applications and those sorts of things. But at some point, you also need your own internal documentation for Plex. This is a tool that we use at Revolution. It's called Microsoft OneNote, and we have it out on a shared drive. I'm just throwing this out there because we really like OneNote for these purposes. You don't have to be fancy when you put something in OneNote. You literally can cut and paste and move on with your life. You know, cut something out of an email and paste it in here in a certain section. It doesn't even have to be tremendously organized because OneNote has really great search capability over anything that you put in it. So we as a consulting team have this OneNote database that we've been developing for years. We use it just to drop in tips and tricks and, you know, all of the complicated things that there are to know about managing Plex. So I would encourage you to create at least a database for your own internal documentation, and I would recommend OneNote. It's a great tool to do that with. Okay, so the settings, the Plex settings, right? This is one of the major areas where we drive and we learn about functionality that's available to us in Plex. When you go through your implementation, you're going to have a project manager that's going to set up the settings and talk with you about the way that you need Plex to work and set them up initially. But these settings grow every day. Every one of those new enhancements that you see roll out is probably, oh, well, not probably, it is going to be controlled by a setting. So the settings are growing every day. There are a number of ways to get to the settings. Actually, there are a number of ways to view the settings. So the way that you're seeing on the screen right now, this is called application settings. Hover menu, system settings, application settings, what we're getting to. The intention of getting to settings this way is that you're seeing the settings that were built specifically for the page that you're on. So if I want to know if I can add a field to the inventory grid, the first way that I'm going to try to find that out is I'm going to go to that inventory grid, system settings, application settings, and look at them here. This is not, well, let's talk about this for just a minute. The ones that you see that are gray on here, the gray settings indicate settings that only Plex can change. Partners can't change them, you can't change them. There are really very few Plex-only settings, and they're really only in place when you could harm yourself by setting it up. So gray settings are Plex-only settings. A couple tricks that we use on this page and all of the application setting pages are to use the regular old Microsoft Control F. So bring up the settings page, Control F, because that's going to search the text for the setting descriptions as well. So if you're looking for something in particular, don't just look at setting names, because that's only what the programmer decided to call it, but he's going to be more descriptive over here in this text. So Control F to find actually what you're looking for. In addition, read the descriptions of the settings very carefully. The programmers try to provide as much detail in there as possible. That has been improving over the years. You know, in the beginning it seemed like they were the only ones that were going to ever have to know. And then they started to expose this stuff to the customer base, and we see setting descriptions are improving so that the community can understand them. But they often provide clues to additional settings that you might have to turn on or where that setting is used at. So you'll really want to read every word of that setting description because it matters. So that is application settings. Hover menu, module setup, module settings, which is underneath application settings. This is going to show you the settings not just for what's on that page, but for the whole module that you're in. So if I did that same thing in the inventory tracking grid, or the inventory tracking grid, yeah, I'm going to see all of the settings that revolve around inventory tracking. Now, I do that often because just because the settings should be linked to a page doesn't mean that it always is, right? So I'm going to get a much better sense that I've got everything that I want to know about that page by looking at module settings. I do application settings first because I want that quick answer. Maybe I'm going to find it right here. Then I go to module settings and look there. So this is better for finding what you need. If you really want to find out about a particular piece of functionality through the whole application, go to module settings, but take out the name of the module. So it's going to default to whatever screen you're on, the module for whatever screen you're on. Take that out, and if I want to know how the tracking number is used through Plex, I'm going to take out that module name and I'm going to wildcard search tracking in the setting name. That's going to bring me up across all Plex modules where that tracking number might be used. Now, is it possible that they called tracking number something else on a different screen? Yes. Nothing I can do about that, right? That is a possibility, but it's unusual. Once Plex adopts a name for a piece of functionality, they pretty well stick with it. So I'm fairly confident by searching, wildcard searching tracking in the setting name, that I'm getting back all of the settings that might deal with that number. So I can see that I could potentially see that tracking number in accounts receivable and where I can put it on the part list, and et cetera, et cetera. The thing about searching this way, I don't know if you can really tell it up on the screen, but the values that are brought back in searching this way, I can't change anything. So I use this as a tool to find what I'm looking for, and then I still have to go back in, put that module name up top, and research for that setting so that I can turn it on or off. It won't let me, when I bring back all of the settings this way, sometimes it won't let me change them this way. So I have to look for it. I find what I'm looking for, and then I get more specific in my search to be allowed to change it. Another great use for researching settings is these added since or updated since fields. You notice, actually, I don't know the year that they started using this. I'm going to guess about 2007. But if you haven't visited a screen in a while and you want to see if there's new functionality on the screen, you can come to the settings and put in an added since date, and it will just return settings for you for things that have changed maybe from the last time that you've looked at it. Right. Setting history report. This should be in your PCN. And this is going to show you what you have changed. So this is going to give you a list of settings that have been modified in your PCN within a particular period of time. This is really great for researching a problem. Hey, this doesn't work the way that I expected it to. Now go back and research setting changes. Maybe something that you did in another module is affecting something that somebody's seeing down the line, but you can quickly isolate it with a setting history report. Okay, this is actually fairly obscure, but I just wanted to point it out. There's the whole setting system in Plex, and there are a subset of settings that can be set. That's using the word set a lot of times. They can be set at the user level. So when you go to a user record and you go to the submenu for that user, there's this option here called user settings. Mostly this is used to store defaults. When you say set as default on those picker screens, this is usually where those defaults are stored. But there are some other settings in here that can override the overall system settings. Oh man, I'm going long here. Gosh, the tables. All right, so the tables. We have, in the tables, we also drive functionality. So you can have in a table fields that you see when you maintain the table. So for instance, in the AP invoice status, we have default fields that are turned on when you implement Plex. But if you go to the maintenance button in System Setup, you can see that there are a number of other fields or columns in that table. These columns all drive functionality in the system. So if you needed to manage your booking date or something in accounts payable, you can come to the AP invoice status field, think about what might be the most logical table that would define this, and you see that somebody has actually already gone down this track and there's a booked field that can be turned on in the AP invoice status table itself to start using it. In addition to fields that can be turned on in tables, there are a multitude of tables that are not turned on in your PCN. The only ones that are turned on are the ones that you're currently using. And if you want to know if there is new functionality in an application or functionality that you want to potentially use, you'll want to go to the setup tables, unclick this existing flag, and you're going to see all of the tables that are out there that haven't even been turned on in your PCN yet that can drive functionality. All right. I'm going to have to skip some things here and go to the most important things. So, one thing that I'm going to skip a few pages here, and I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff, but I apologize, I'm running short on time. This is a screen that you may or may not have in your PCN yet, but it is available to the customer base. It's called error tracking. When you get Plex errors, and I should have put one up here, it's that error that comes up in the box about this big and says contact Plex Systems or something like that. Those errors are logged, and using this error tracking screen, you can actually see those errors. Now, what you're going to see in that error description is pretty darn cryptic, but it can give you some clues as to what you need to do to solve the problem. In our experience, 70% of the time, it's because you don't have a table populated, particularly when you're rolling out a new module. And actually, in these details of this error tracking module, it will often tell you the name of the table that it's trying to get data from that it doesn't have any data. So then you can just flip over without needing to contact Plex or anything. You can flip over to your setup tables, turn on that table and populate it and be able to move on with your implementation process. So that's probably little known there. Screen history. This is also relatively new in Plex. Very powerful in terms of researching changes or issues that your users are reporting. So you get to screen history, hover menu, system setup, can't remember that, hover menu, system setup, and up at the top, rather than going to settings, you're going to go to history. This is going to show you all of the Plex changes that have taken place on this screen. So if something doesn't look the way you remembered it yesterday, or it's not functioning the way you remembered it yesterday, you can quickly come here, because I'm sure I've thought this a million times, I wonder what they changed. Well, now you can know yourself. It's on this screen history page. All right, one last thing I want to cover, Angie. Running out of time, I know, but if you do need to have a modification made to Plex, and you need to submit a support request to them to request modification to the system, just a few basic things about writing an efficient spec and getting what you're looking for. So the first thing is, don't assume they know what you're talking about. You know, 600 customers, completely different environments, set of programmers that have a million things going on, you know, in a very busy project manager. Don't assume that they know what you're talking about. So what you'll want to do in your support request or in the body of an attachment is to explain what you're trying to do. Explain your business case, not justify it. You don't have to justify it to Plex, but it's always helpful when you're making a system modification to know why. Why does the customer want to do this? In your document, we always do this with a document with attachments, we want to include marked up screenshots. Make this as easy for them as possible to get it right for you with as little interaction as you can. You want to illustrate the intended results. This is what I expect to see at the end. So if you want a report and you want it to have these columns and these filters and be sorted and subtotaled, take the extra 10 minutes, go to Excel and mock that up so they know what they're shooting for so that they can deliver that back readily. Walk the whole process logically before you put a request out there for a change, because often what you're doing in the beginning of the process is going to affect something at the end of the process. So think it through the whole way so that you get the whole requirement in the document and can get it all taken care of at one time. And consider alternatives. That's really kind of the point of explaining the business case to Plex as well. You guys are probably not the first person to ask for it, so maybe there are some ways that other customers have thought about it. If they know what you're trying to do and why, they might be able to give you some alternatives to consider. And then set up board-defined test data that they can use to test the modifications that you're looking for. So, bottom line, had to skip a few slides in there. Happy to talk about those later, but bottom line is use the test environment, determine your test data, change one setting at a time as you're trying to figure things out so you know what affected your change, test your results, and then keep screenshots and document the process. We are all experimenting and documenting as we learn our way through Plex. All right? So hopefully that'll help you fry some fish back at your business. I'm happy to share any more pages that I missed if you're interested. And we would be happy to help out if you have any needs during your implementation. My name's Karen Patterson with Revolution Group, and we're upstairs. Thank you.